Hello guys, what's going on and welcome to the Jack Nerd channel. In this video I'm going to be talking about how to become a better tank in Shadowlands Mythic Plus dungeons. Just as a disclaimer, this is not for the people who are already advanced and trying to break that top 100 Raider IO score. This is for people who are either just starting out as tanks or haven't played for a long time and just want to get that Keystone Master achievement and tank 15 plus dungeons as fast as possible. So sit back, relax and enjoy this video. Alright guys, so my first tip is going to be something extremely simple but very important, and that is that you will need to know your route. You will need to know exactly which way you want to go and what you want to pull. And your best tool for this is going to be Mythic Dungeon Tools. So this add-on, Mythic Dungeon Tools, is an absolute necessity if you are playing a tank in World of Warcraft. What you will need to do with this add-on is that this is the best way for you to plan ahead and plan the route that you want to take on when you are playing your dungeons. Alright guys, so when you are planning your route for a dungeon, you need to consider two main things. One is going to be that you need to reach 100% trash count in order to complete the dungeon. So you need to make sure that during your route you are going to get 100%. The other thing that's going to be important is that you need good pride timings. If you are not sure about what pride is going to spawn with every 20% of trash count. After defeating this pride, you are going to get a speed, healing plus a damage buff, which is going to make your life so much easier when fighting tougher bosses or on fortified weeks when you are fighting the tougher trash packs. So you always need to make sure that you are timing your pride accordingly. Just to give you guys an example, here you can see the Necrotic Wake in the Mythic Dungeon Tools, and you can see my route towards the first boss. So what you want to make sure is that you have 20% count before reaching to the boss and to be in a position where you can pull the boss after killing the pride. So as you can see, I'm going to pull these two packs first. Then I'm going to pull those two packs, and that's going to be the last pack. With these 5 packs, it's going to give me 21% and it's going to give me a pride. But even more importantly, it's going to give me a pride that after defeating, we can pull the boss instantly and I can kite it the way back where we came from. So just to recap on it guys one more time, your goal when you are planning your route for a Mythic Plus dungeon is going to be one, that you need to make sure that you are reaching 100% trash count towards the end of the dungeon to make sure that you actually complete the dungeon. The other thing that you need to consider is going to be your pride timings. You need to make sure that you are having pride before tougher bosses or trash packs. And just one more time, you are going to have pride at 20, 40, 60, 80 and 100% of the trash count. Sometimes to make sure that you actually have a pride for the boss that you want to, sometimes you will need to skip packs. For this, you can either use Rogue's Shroud or you can use Invisibility Potions. These are the two main things that you can do. I will show you guys an example. Just like in the other side, if you want to have a pride for the first boss, for Hakkar, then you will need to skip that whole hall that's leading up to Hakkar. To make sure that you can do this, either your whole group needs to have invisibility potions or you will need to have a rogue that can provide you a shroud, and you will need to communicate this to your team. So sometimes planning your route is more complex than other times, but also a very good resource is going to be the Raider IO website, where you can find weekly routes posted by professional players. So if you don't want to plan your own routes, then just go for this website and download the route. Alright guys, the second thing is going to be something that should not be only your job, but unfortunately if you are playing with people who are not professional and not that experienced, and especially when you are playing lower end keys, then you are going to have this issue. There are certain mobs and abilities, spells, that will need to be interrupted. If these spells and abilities are not interrupted, then it's going to make your run much longer and much harder. Just one example for this is going to be in the Spires of Ascension. Here you can see that there is a Forsworn Mender and a Forsworn Goliath in the first two packs. The Forsworn Mender casts a Forsworn Doctrine, which is going to be a very powerful heal that's going to heal one of its allies for 10% health every single second. If you do not interrupt this ability, then it's going to heal one mob up to maximum, which is going to make your pool much longer, and it's going to make it much harder, and you might run out of mitigation before you finish the pool and just simply die. Moving on to the next pack, you can find a Forsworn Goliath, which is going to cast a Rebellious Fist ability, which is going to provide a team-wide damage, which is a huge damage, especially on higher keys. This might wipe your whole team on a fortified week with just one single cast. So this is one ability that has to be interrupted every single time, and just one time when you fail to interrupt it might wipe your whole team. So abilities like this need to be interrupted. But what do you do if you interrupt something else and your team does not know that they need to interrupt this? So you need to make sure that you let your team know what they need to interrupt. Of course, it should be their job. You can say that it's not fair or whatever, people should know, and that's absolutely right, but most people don't. So you need to make sure that you are the leader, that you lead your team and you let them know what they need to interrupt. So the best way for this is to make a macro how you can very fast mark targets, because you don't want to waste time by right-clicking on nameplates and then targeting and so on. So in the beginning of a dungeon, you want to always let your team know that you are always going to target primary CC targets. You will always target those mobs that need to be interrupted every single time. So just let them know that, let's say I'm going to target each mob that needs to be CC'd or interrupted with a star. Following this, you can make a very simple macro that looks simply like this. This is the macro that I'm using. You can just put it on your action bar and you can mark up targets extremely fast and efficient way. Just by doing this, you can make sure that your team knows exactly what they need to focus on, and you can make sure that these mobs will be interrupted every single time, especially on higher keys. And as I said, let's say with this Forsworn Goliath, if you do not interrupt this ability, then it can wipe your whole team. So this is absolutely crucial, and if you make sure that you let your team know that you mark these targets and they will focus this will save you so many wipes, so many damage, and it's going to make your runs much more successful, easier and faster. So make sure to make these macros, or just simply make sure that you have a way how you can mark up these targets and let your team know that marked targets need to be interrupted. Also, of course, you need to know what needs to be interrupted. So Mythic Dungeon Tools is an absolutely great add-on to check how or what each mob is casting. You just simply right click on any of the trash mobs and you can see their abilities, or you can check some of the guides on these dungeons, which usually cover every single mob that needs to be focused out. Moving on to my number 3 and last tip, it's going to be that you need to know exactly when to use your cooldowns, and you need to use your cooldowns proactively rather than reactively. This is something that I learned very late, but this is something that made my survivability as a tank much better. So this is absolutely crucial, and if you just keep this one thing in mind, you will die much less. So what do I mean by using your CDs proactively rather than reactively? What I mean by this, that you need to know which packs are more dangerous and which phases of bosses will provide more damage to you. This way you can use your CDs before getting big damage and you can stay alive much more effectively. What do I mean by this? Let's say here, during this pack, you can see that I'm rushing in, I'm generating 3 holy power, and I'm already using my Ardent Defender. I am not waiting until I get below 50% health. I'm not waiting until I'm in a position where I might already die, or if I am in trouble. In the beginning of the pool, when you start the pool, that's when the most amount of mobs are alive. CCs did not start yet. People did not start stunning pulling or whatever, all of the mobs are up and all of them are damaging you. So this is the time when you are going to get the most amount of damage, and this is the most dangerous time for you. If you do not use your CD proactively, you are going to get a ton of damage, and you might get into a position where you, even if you use your CD, you will not stay alive because your healer won't be able to save you. So you need to make sure that you use your CDs before you are getting this damage. You need to know which phases of a boss fight, let's say, or which packs in a dungeon will have huge amount of damage, and you need to use these CDs proactively, as I've been showing to you guys it here. So you don't want to wait ever until you are in a position where you might die. Of course, you always have CDs with every single class, which are for these cases. Let's say with Paladin, I'm having Divine Shield, my bubble, that I can use if I see that there is no other way out. But even this cooldown, I use it many times to make sure that I can last phases in a fight where I'm getting a huge amount of damage and I might die without it, and then I can just kite. And that's another thing that you need to always be sure that you incorporate into your tactics as a tank. When you don't have any CDs to use and you see that still mobs are up and still you are getting huge amount of damage, you should never just rely on your healer. You should not stand in a pack without any active mitigation and expect your healer to keep you up. Usually there's a lot of group damage, and also it's a huge damage on you. And if you don't have any active mitigation, then you will probably die. So you either need to use your CDs when you are in these high damage situations, or you need to kite. You can kite with every single class. Of course, let's say a demon hunter will kite much more easily than, let's say, a druid. But still, always you need to make sure that you get as little damage as possible while doing as much damage as possible, because of course you want to do a lot of damage too, because you want to make your dungeons go fast, because these are all timed dungeons, but you want to make sure that you don't die. This is your first priority. So if you don't have any more active mitigation CDs left and you are still getting a huge amount of damage, then you need to kite. So never just rely on your healer. Your healer cannot save you if you don't use your CDs proactively and if you don't kite in high damage situations. So just keep this in mind. You always want to plan ahead. You always have more than one active mitigation CDs, so you want to portion those out. Let's say here I've been using Ardent Defender for this pool. For the next pool, I'm going to use my ability that does not come to my mind, but reduces damage by 40%. And then for the next pool, I would have Divine Shield, situation when I'm getting high amounts of damage. And by the time that third pool finishes, I will have my Ardent Defender again. So I'm portioning out my CDs to make sure that with every single pool that provides high damage, I will have something to rely on to keep me alive. So this is what I mean by using your CDs proactively and planning ahead during a dungeon, knowing where you will need more mitigation than other places. But in general, you never want to rush into a big pack, or you never want to start a boss without any CDs, because then it's just up to luck and to your healer and to fate, and that's not a good and reliable way to stay alive. Alright guys, so these are my main tips and tricks on how to become a better tank in Shadowlands dungeons. I am far from a professional player and a professional tank, but I'm playing this game since 16 years and I have plenty of experience, so I hope that you guys found something useful here. But please let me know what other tips you consider as very important for tanks and what could help others to be better tanks in Shadowlands. I hope you guys enjoyed this video one more time, and if you did, please smash that like button and let me know if you like this video so I have the motivation to make even more of videos like this. Also, please let me know what you would enjoy seeing here on this channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.